And still, I was still on the wrong road, even in the midst when we make excuses for why things happen, when in actuality, God is trying to get our attention.
I felt like he was intervening, you know, the whole time, even though we might not see it. Even on our side, when I'm standing, I was feeling like, okay, what is it, God? You know, we're the ones in the prayer closet. We're the ones kind of praying through that prodigal to come home and things of that sort. But still wondering, you know, there's a lot of questions out there like, am I doing it right? Am I saying the right things? Am I making the right moves? Because, you know, we want to hurry the process. But at the same time, yeah, we're doing the prayers right. We can't pray wrong. We're trying our best to figure out how this stand looks, right? But I think it's a daily thing. It's a daily walk. And you move as God moves you, because you're already in pain. So it's already hard enough to try to figure out, you know, what does tomorrow look like when your pain is so deep sometimes. However, with us standing the way we do and doing it completely and utterly without miss or fail, hopefully. And we're not perfect people, so that there's a day, we have our days, right? So, but God is calling us to seek him daily so we can understand, okay, God, what does this day bring? What am I to do for my prodigal? We don't have all the answers. Us here, nor do you guys, do we get all the answers up front. But one thing I do know is to be with God and in his presence was like the best feeling, because he covered those things at times when it just got to be too much, when you feel like I'm so exhausted, I can't do this anymore. And it's okay to sit quiet. It's okay to go inwardly and just be like, God, I can't. I just can't. And it's okay to do that. God, whatever I'm doing too much of or too little of, show me. Take over. Help me. Because at the same time that we may think it's just our spouse or whatever, he's really trying to say, hey, I'm trying to deal with you. And we don't want to look at us sometimes. We don't. Like, no, it couldn't have been me, you know, but that has to change. That has to be a forefront thought and a forefront move. Even for God to mend things the way he wants to mend things. He doesn't want two broken people, let alone one broken person coming back. And so in order to fix that, you both tend to be broken because he left, and the person that left, honestly, is hurting just as much. We may not think so. We think they're out there in the streets having fun, enjoying their life. Things are going great. 9 times out of 10, that's not the case. Things aren't going great at all. It's all a facade. It's all a portrayal of what you want people to think. Just like Facebook, right? We only put out our best on there. What we want people to see and think. And in truth, what does that real day look like? You know? Yeah, how many car accidents did it take, right? Yeah. 2. Right? And yeah, the first one before was like a warning before he even left. And then there was one after. And yeah, he'll take the very things that we put before him away from us. That's a huge one. And for me, I felt like, not that I worship my husband Sean here or anything, but the fact was, I really thought, okay, he's leading everything. And instead of realizing, okay, God needs to be in charge of everything for us, and then he's giving him the wisdom he needs as a husband and me as a wife, so we can work together. But I gave him charge, and I think that in itself was stressful. Yes, he's a man, but he's also human. And he's not invincible, and he can't carry the weight that and the pressure sometimes that we might put on each other. And so I had to realize, yeah, that's right. I forgot God. Like, yeah, you are everything. You are the first thing. You are the one that makes everything right. You can answer the questions, not just him. You set things right. You set things in order. So it took a lot of that, and going through that process that had to bring me to that point to realize, all right, go ahead and fix me. Go ahead and work it out in me. And I was ready, but sometimes it can take longer because we're not showing that we're ready. God's like, do I have your attention yet? Are you ready yet? And he's so awesome because he does. He'll wait for us to get in line. He won't push us. He won't force us. He'll show us some things. He'll contribute to some things. But
there's a requirement on each one of us.
There is. And as much as we say, yeah, the stand is about trusting and believing, totally it is. It completely is. But what in that do I want to better myself? Why do I want to stay the same way and not come out as a better me for my spouse? It's if I'm truly standing, like if I'm truly loving this person, despite of how they treated me, despite of what they're doing, I still want to be my very best. I'm not waiting for you to come home so I can give you and reap you a new one. And,
right.
You know.
And that right there is another thing that so I'm glad she stopped right there at the point, because that is so important. Let me back up to what she said earlier about the man not having all the answers. And the reason why I wanted to just kind of go back there is because, yes, we're esteemed as the man is the head of the household, but there are plenty times if men were to be truthful and to be honest, we do not have all the answers. We don't. We pretend we do. We think we know all the time what direction we're always going to be in. Sometimes we know what that next financial thing is. Sometimes we know what that next hurdle is, and we say that we're preparing for it and we're ahead of it. And sometimes we're still trying to figure out, okay, I need to make sure she's secure while I try to figure out a solution. Even though we're trying to make the woman secure. Because truthfully, the last thing we men want to feel is inferior in our own home. We don't want to feel like we're less than to our spouses. We don't want to feel as though that you're the man, you should know. Well, guess what? We don't always know. That's the truth of it. We don't always know. We have an idea of what we want to do. We have an idea of where we want to go, but we don't always have the answer and or the complete direction. So yeah, there's a lot of things that many of us lack in certain areas. Oh yeah, many of us are great on the volleyball court, the basketball court, the football and racquetball, and maybe even playing video games. But sometimes when it comes to real life stuff and dealing with marriage, or dealing with finances, dealing with automotive stuff, repairs around the home, not everybody is gifted in those areas to be able to have all the answers. And I know the spouse says, hey, but you're the man, you're supposed to know. We don't always know. But the truth of the matter is we also have to be willing to be comfortable and transparent enough to our spouses to say, you know what, in all honesty, I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. And many times we go through a lot of difficulties in our marriages and our lives because we continue to keep putting up the facade that we know when in actuality we don't. And then our spouses feel that when they find out that you really didn't know, when they find out you really didn't have a plan, then they feel like they're left in the dark. They feel like they've been lied to. They feel like they might have been even manipulated.
Yeah.
And it's very important that we as men be honest with our spouse to say, hey, I don't have a plan for that. I don't know. I don't know what time. I don't know how this is going to work out. What is your idea? Because that's one thing that I'm getting better at saying, you know what? I don't know, but you haven't thought about that? Did you such and such? Because I know what I'm very good at, that I'm gifted at. I also know what my spouse is gifted at. And many times the areas that I lack, she's very strong in. And I don't mind her handling some of those things. But then there's areas in her life that she's not strong in that I'm real good at. Then there's some areas
I'm
that's
really
true.
good at everything.
Girl,
I'm just playing.
no, she's not. That's a lie from the pit. But anyway,
that's
but
cool.
the other thing is with men. While we're with our spouses, we're going through life at home. Men also need an outlet. And what I mean by an outlet, I'm not talking about a gaming outlet and hanging out with the boys at the barbershop. I'm just talking about a bunch of garbage. But a place where we can actually have real dialogue and talk about some of our insecurities. And the reason why men go through some of the things is because, you women, you have plenty of places you go. You have places, they have conferences, they have different groups, they have chats, because women innately have this thing within them to where they're willing to share, and also women are willing to listen. Man has not been gifted with that, with a whole lot of that. And there's not a whole lot of outlets. So what happens is, when we men get together, we're trying to be so strong that our house is together, our jobs are together, our homes are together, our cars are together, everything is good. So that way when we hang out with our buddies, we could just have a good time. But the truth of the matter is, when we left our buddies and we're in our car, we're thinking about all the things that we wish we had somebody that we could really talk about and be honest. So yes, we don't have all the answers, but men also have to be honest and get to the point to where they're willing to talk about some areas where we all need help. And just like some of you women are saying, hey, I need help, there are men out there that need help too, but they're just not asking because they're worried about feeling helpless. They're worried about being looked at as weak, or that they're not a real man. Because men, just like women judge women, especially with outfits and things of that sort, men actually judge men. They do. And when men begin to share, the first thing, if I decided like right now, say, you know what, I'm just going to do this for the first time. I'm just going to try to be vulnerable, be transparent, and I'm just going to come before you and talk to somebody and say, you know what, I just want to talk about this area of my life, I'm really struggling. And somebody starts playing around and says something like, man, why are you being weak? No, I'm just playing. But anyway, let's talk about it. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, okay, the first time I tried to be vulnerable, you talked about it. And guess what? 9 times out of 10, that's the first and last time a man will share. Because the first time he tried to be vulnerable, the man started playing. The other guy started playing. So what happens is, a man wants his heart cherished too. Just like a woman wants her heart cherished, she wants to be heard, so does the man. And when he begins to share and decides that he wants to open up, and not man up, but man down, so that way the other person can help them, all of a sudden, you don't want a man down anymore. He wants to always be manned up, and put on the facade. So understand, we need help too. So I want you to understand, even from a prodigal standpoint, and I'm just talking about from the man's side, because there are prodigal women out there too as well. But from the man's side, when God deals with us, he causes us to man down. He calls us to be things to be removed from a lot of our lives, to get us to the point to where, even sometimes if it's at the point to where you almost hit rock bottom, and it happens. Some people, they have to lose almost everything in their life for them to really pay attention. And I pray that those of you that listen, that it's none of you to where you lose everything. I don't want anybody to lose their life to finally get it. I don't want somebody to lose your daughter or your son, or maybe the wife for you to get it, or lose your mom or your dad to get it, lose that job or your health to get it. I want you to pay attention now, because it's easier to listen now than later.
Yeah. And on the standard side, this is why it's important to pray, because when they're out there, we don't know what they are encountering, we don't know what they're going through. And so don't stop praying daily. As a spouse, your prayers cover. There's still a oneness there. Even if they walk away, even if they say they've divorced you, and you're honoring your covenant, God's honoring your covenant still stands, and there's still a oneness there where your prayers are covering that person. Every day I'm praying, even if I don't have these long drawn out prayers, but every day I'm praying, God, just protect my husband. Bring him home safely. Please don't bring him home disabled or mangled up or to a place he can't talk. It's like, I went through all this. Please protect.
Yeah, don't bring me back crippled.
And keep him, keep him. I know you have to get his attention, because that's what God will allow some things to get our attention. But please, God, send him back home, okay? And he came back a little worn, a little battered. It's true. He didn't come back.
I did.
Just so perfect, and he had to build back up. But again, the prayer's covered, and that's so important. We think, oh, why am I praying for them? Why do I have to? And it's because we know our prayers as spouses when that other person is not where they should be. And if we're as one, we're covering each other. You know, he may be at 5% day, I may be at 95%. And that 95 is going to make a whole difference to his 5%. So even when he's not around, even when he's not with you, you have to understand that God is working. He is working this whole time. Like he's leaving nothing unturned. Because when we put God in the midst of it and we're saying, hey, do this for me, we have to be careful what we ask for. Because God is like, I'm doing it for you, but I'm going to do it my way for you. You may not like it. It may not feel good. It may feel like the worst thing in the world. But when you ask me to do something, I'm going to do it. But you got to be on board.
Right.
You got to be on board. And God knows us so good enough. He knows we want it. But to what degree? Are we willing to give up so easy? Are we willing to fight? Like, we got to be willing. I'm saying this because it did bring him home. And we're in a great spot. We're, you know, doing ministry now and stuff like we were before, but in a different way now.
Definitely different.
However, God is still speaking to us. I still, even though he's home, we have to make the conscious decision to say, hey, this is going to work. And God is now in the midst of that. It's so much better because we're like, okay, God, what do you say?